Stephen Squibbs presents this month's board certification tip.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have our first board certified tip of the month, and we have newly board certified attorney Andrew Nickolaou, who just passed the 2022 exam. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me today.
And congratulations. First of all, board certification is epic. Secondly, you did it in 7 years, and I only know two other attorneys that have done that so quickly, which I think is amazing. So congratulations on being a part of a very select group that decided to get board certified. And these qualifications are not easy. The trials, the peer review. So you're in a very special group. So congratulations, Andrew, and getting your hands around this material so early in your career. And I'm one of the three attorneys too, so I can tell you, being board certified in 2004 when I got my license in Cert 97, I've been an attorney now 25 years and board certified most of that time, and it has been a great feather in my cap, and I am sure you will wear it well. So congrats.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So let's talk about the test and your approach to it. And, there's a lot of people that are watching and listening and are pretty terrified about this test, mainly because of the low passage rate. And it's the hard test. What steps did you take to figure out what you had to memorize, what you had to study? Where'd you start off?
So I think the best way to start is to start early because this actually was my second time taking it. So I did take it the year prior, and I did not pass. I missed it by I can't remember the exact amount of points, but a few points, enough to be like, "Are you kidding me? I was so close," and I just missed it. And obviously, I wanted to retake it right away. Because they do allow you to take it a second time without having to wait any period of time, and I thought that was going to be very beneficial. So,
after you took it the first time, did you go check out your test and look at it?
Absolutely. Which, if anyone has taken it and does not pass it, I completely 110% recommend doing that, because I believe that played a great role in me ultimately passing the second time around. And I will also say that it was a little bit different probably than prior years and attorneys that have passed it because of COVID. So the first year I took it, the 2021 year that I took it, it was virtual, and that was the first year that I believe, to my understanding, that they were offering it in a virtual setting, which was extremely stressful in and of itself. I mean, the fact of having to go in person and taking it, I would have been stressful, but then changing it up to be virtual and making sure that you had everything ready to go, and making sure all these other things that you had to do, because they use special software that literally records the whole thing, tracks your eye movements, tracks whatever else that you were doing during it. And so that, I think, added a very high level of stress, because I tend to fidget a lot, and I tend to kind of look off the screen a lot, and lose my train of thought, or when I'm thinking I kind of look away. And so I feel like in that first year, that impacted the time that I had taking that exam, because I was, in the back of my mind, I think subconsciously, thinking about all the other things in the environment. This year, I also took it virtual. They basically they changed it a little bit, where you could do it in person, but you wouldn't be able to use the computer. So if anyone was crazy enough to want to handwrite the board certification exam, then they could have gone in person this year. But I would imagine that most people ended up doing the virtual option. But in having the experience from the prior year, I already knew what to expect with the software, and I made sure I was in a very quiet environment, that wasn't going to be distracting. And I was already planning and prepping and focusing for the time restrictions, that in my opinion, are the biggest, roadblock that an attorney has in passing this board certification exam.
Did you keep track of the hours you spent each year of studying? And if so, would you share that with us?
Absolutely. So the first time I took it, I did not study enough. I thought that I studied enough, but I quickly realized that I did not. I didn't, first of all, I didn't start soon enough. I think, once you submit your application, I believe the deadline is usually by like the end of August. You really should start planning and timing out almost like a study schedule for, September, October, November, December, where you can at least start, getting some study time in, going over cases, and actually coming up with a plan. And then as you get into January, and especially, if you're going to be attending the Cert review, seminar in January, that's when, you really probably want to start picking it up. That first year I took it, I didn't really plan as well or listen to the advice of watching, things like, what you put on of past people that, took it, and, the other things that are available and resources that are available, and I didn't really start too much in terms of planning and studying, at the end of the year after I applied. I started getting things together and materials and stuff like that, but not really kind of digging into the studying and the books and all of that. And so I really probably honestly did not start studying until January, and then the exam is in March. And I don't think I tracked the amount of hours that I spent, but just in that time frame alone, it wasn't enough. I honestly, I don't think I felt ready going into the exam the first time I took it in 2021. And even after taking the exam that day, I was like, I really did not think that I passed it, because there was some stuff on there. I'm like, I don't even remember looking at that in the materials that I studied. Granted, I preface that by saying that the bar likes to put stuff on there that I don't think any family law attorney probably knows, and you probably have to guess, because that's something you would have to typically look up in the rules anyway, because it's just so out there.
Well, it's a comprehensive test, and they do give you the core and subcore, and it is a difficult test. There's not only the memorization, but the application, and being a past chair of the committee that would write and grade the test. Everything is going to be tested, and
Yep.
I think you have to go in there just assuming you have to know everything, and then there's a bit of luck, on what things you know better and how you apply it. So what materials did you, well, for year two, did you keep track of the hours, or do you have any
So
idea?
for year two, I probably easily spent, just studying alone, probably not even counting the time of actually putting all the materials and everything together, probably 200 hours, I would say, just studying. I spent a lot of time. I literally had blocked myself off, from work, and, was spending hours, in the months leading up to it. And then as it got closer, I was pretty much blocking myself out for the entire week, and then breaking it into portions and areas of studying. So it was a substantial amount of time that I invested into it, because I really wanted to make sure that I passed the second time around. I also took different approaches to studying it, because obviously, having gone through it the first time, I realized I was not ready, that there was a lot, to still focus on and to study, and to make sure that I, understood and comprehended. Because like you said, a lot of it, it's not just of, hey, I recognize what that is. It's, how am I going to apply it to this fact pattern and explain it in a way that actually makes sense to the person that's grading it, but also in a concise manner, because that is the other thing that you really have to focus and train yourself on in studying, is time management. And if you don't, or if you are a long-winded type of attorney that likes to write pages and pages and pages in your motions or briefs or anything like that, then you really need to focus on the time management part, because it is very easy. And I learned that the first time around, to get that essay question and to really just kind of sit there and say, oh, I know exactly what I need to explain to them and how to answer this. But then you realize you're spending way, way, way too much time on that one issue. And then you've got another 20 different issues that you really need to touch on to let the bar know that, hey, I actually know what I'm talking about. I recognize all these issues. I know the rules. I know how to apply it, but I just don't have time to lay it all out.
Did
And that's,
you answer like in a narrative way, or would you feel comfortable doing list or even an outline? How did you approach that?
so the first time around was a nightmare. I honestly felt bad for the
The
person or
graders.
persons that were grading, my essays, because I felt like I went through as I identified the issues and reading. Well, first of all, you always read the call to question, read what they're asking for,
And
because
that's the bottom sentence of the
yeah,
essay. It's
it's
in
right at the
bold.
bottom. It's in bold. That literally, I didn't even look at the rest of it until I read that and kind of made conscious, like, hey, this is what I need to look for when looking through these insane fact patterns. And after you do that, then it's a matter of, on the computer, with using the exam software and all of that, they have little note sections and stuff like that. So you can kind of just bullet point really quick and say, this is what I need to look for. And then as you go through, just make quick notes as to, what you're identifying as far as these issues and how they're applying to the different areas. And then from there, I didn't really do it as much in a narrative format. The first year it was a garbled mess. It just was all over the place. This year I focused it more on each area, and from there, then I kind of went through, applied from the fact pattern, very quick. This is why this fact applies under this issue. This is the law. This is how the law would apply if the court were to look at it, or if it was the question of how would you advise the client or the potential consultation, put it in that perspective where I'm answering the question, because just bullet pointing and listing out the information, it may show that, hey, what the law is, or you might have memorized what the rule is or what the factors are because you have a good memory. That doesn't mean that you know how to actually apply it to what the actual question is asking or that particular fact pattern. And I think that is what gets you, and again, I have no idea because I'm not a grader. I don't know how it all works or what they're looking for exactly, but I think that gets you more points, when they're looking at it, because they're realizing, hey, it's not that he just is regurgitating what he memorized. It is that he actually understands the law and how it applies to the facts of the question that, they're asking you to answer. And if you can get that correct and you actually lay it out and show that you understand that, then I think that goes a long way. But you've got to do it in a concise manner so you can move on to the next one and actually touch base on all of them, so you can show that you've recognized all of these different issues. Because some of the questions, I had a bullet point for all these different issues. I think I had one that was probably over 10 of them, just different issues, and I was able to manage my time well enough where I was answering every single one. Sure, I may have missed a couple different areas, that they were looking for, but I think I did well enough. Well, clearly I did well enough to be able to get enough in there, enough, of a response in there to be able to answer the questions the way that they were looking for.
And what materials did you use to help you do this data dump so you learned all this information?
So the typical, things that you're going to want to look for are the red books, from Cert Review. Those obviously are very helpful because they touch, on all the different areas. They give you a bunch of information. It is a little bit of an overload. So on those, I recommend only doing maybe like one topic at a time. Don't overdo it because it can be overwhelming.
Sure.
The last 2 years of cases, that is something that, obviously is kind of ingrained in you. They say focus on the last 2 years of cases and it's all fair game. The second time around, I had the benefit of having already studied the year prior. So, instead of the first time it was 2019 and 2020, the second time it was 2020 and 2021. So I had already literally read every single case and studied every single case from 2020 before. So I kind of had a head start in that respect,
Did you read all the case, like the full case out of the Florida Law Weeklies or the
I
Green
did.
Books?
So I did get I used two materials for the cases. I got the Florida Law Weekly, some cases where they have literally every family law reported, opinion that family law cases come out in that given year. And then they have an option where you can get, I guess it's like a pre-order or an early bound release if you need it sooner, because it comes out in January, and obviously they don't give you a lot of time to be able to order it and get it before, your exam in March. And so I ordered that pre-order option right away. They sent it in, a bound format, which was just fine. And then later on, they send you the actual green, hardbound book. So I have that obviously for the office, but, I used that and I read through every single case. That was fair game. Obviously, the dependency cases and adoption, those type of cases you can skip over. That was probably the best parts of studying and reading cases, was when you flipped a page and you saw dependency, and I literally would just cross it out and I would flip the page, enjoy that I got to skip a page. But yeah, I read every single case and took some notes on them. And then as time got closer to the exam, in terms of review and, recapping those cases, using the Squibs summaries, and that book that I was able to get from you, I kind of went over and did a recap of those cases in those different areas for the last couple of years, and just help jog my memory on those cases. If it was something that I thought that was a novel case, that was a change in the law, that had happened in the last year, which there were
definitely going to show up on the test, right?
Oh yeah, so there were a couple of those big cases, especially in 2021, and so in looking through the summaries as I got closer to the exam, that was also a good time to say, this looks like one of those cases that's going to be tested. So I would go back to the Florida Law Weekly book and I would go ahead and I would, read through the case again, just to make sure I understood it, and had a good, understanding of what the court was basically saying, going forward, especially if it was a change, because a lot of us as practitioners, don't always stay up with the current case law, I've found, and or the rule changes, which, I mean, you've got to do it. That's really what it boils down to at the end of the day, is what I've learned and what board certification and studying for that has taught me, and that you've got to stay on top of the rules and the cases, because things change. I mean, even just during studying for the exam, I think the family law rules of procedure changed and updated like 3 or 4 times, with different updates. And I mean, even if they're minor updates, they're still changing. So
yeah, like getting that financial affidavit in 2 days before the hearing. Now it's 5 days. I ran against an attorney that a board certified attorney that didn't even appreciate that change and zapped them. I mean, in my, how I study, I just read this stuff because I don't consider myself that smart, and by reading it and forcing myself to write it, it sticks in my head, and I'm always going to do that because I need to, because of my own learning issues. And even though I have a book, it's really, just a mechanism of me learning these cases. But it's cool to be able to share them. When you got that email, did you get an email, a phone call, or a letter letting you know you passed?
It was an email that came in, and it was in the form of a letter from the Florida Bar, but it did come through by email, thankfully. So I wasn't having to wait for the hard mail.
Did you get it before the deadline, or before you thought it was going to come to you?
So they told us this year that the results would be released no later than June 1st, and the email came in on May 31st.
Wow.
So it came in the day before the technical day that they said would be the last day that it would come out.
One of the best feelings in the world. I know you have 2 boys, but nothing compares to that.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. I mean, I was joking with an attorney colleague of mine, because I'm a guardian ad litem as well, and I'm a GAL on a case that she's one of the attorneys on. And I had a phone conference with her on that case. And as I was connecting to the phone conference, that email literally came in, and I was on the phone with her and with, yeah. And so I was on the phone with her, because I was calling into the conference line, because it was multiple and it was the parties and attorneys connected on it with myself. And so it's one of those, conference calls that you connect to. And so I was literally calling in as the email came in, and I'm on this conference call as a guardian ad litem, and it must have lasted almost an hour. It was probably like 50
Did you text your
minutes.
wife and like,
Yeah,
or
yeah, no, I did, yeah,
so
because
you held this in for an
I
hour?
I was having to hold it in, and I got off the phone call because I obviously was wanting to stay professional while on the line as a guardian ad litem, and so I get off this call after like 50 minutes, and I sent that attorney a message, a text message. I'm like, you don't understand how hard it was to maintain my composure during that phone conference, because literally as I was logging into that phone conference, I got an email saying that I passed the board cert exam. So it just but yeah, it was a great feeling. And obviously, the rest of that day I was on cloud nine, knowing that all the hard work and the time and the hours and sacrifice that was put into it, led to me passing it.
Well, that's really cool. And it is like an incredible achievement that should be celebrated. And I mean, the fact that you retook the test and buckled up, and this is a career changing moment for you that's gonna like put you in the upper echelon of all marital attorneys, like instantly, just by having those initials after your name. Um, Having done it now twice, and knowing that board cert is supposed to be special and really represent the top of the best of the class, do you think it's a fair test?
I do think so. It's a very difficult test. I will I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is something that covers so many different areas, and obviously you don't know going in, what's going to be on it. The general, like you said, the bar, they give you, the topics, the subcore topics, all of that. They give you basically a little outline of what could be on it, and you look at it and you almost are kind of just in amazement because it's literally every single possible area of family law that is potentially out there is on there, which, I could have told you that. I didn't need an outline saying, hey, here, start freaking out, because you need to know basically everything in this, because it's not just all the areas of family. It's the statutes, it's the family law rules of procedure, it's the judicial administration rules. I mean, it's pretty much everything that, you need to know as an attorney, but that most of us, for large part, don't necessarily memorize all of that information. If we need to figure something out, we look it up. That's what attorneys do. You pull up the rules, you look at the rule. If you need to look at case law, you look up case law. That's what we're trained as attorneys, I think, especially in law school, to do, is that, use your resources and look it up, so you can then know what you need to apply to that particular, set of facts. You don't get that luxury. It's not open book. It's not, you don't get to have, the rules or the statutes in front of you. And so you're studying it. Obviously I mentioned the red books from Cert Review are helpful. The Florida Law Weekly, cases for the last 2 years, like I said, the squib summaries was helpful, but also I went through and I studied all the rules of procedure, the family law rules of procedure, the the judicial administration rules, or the general practice and judicial administration rules.
See, no one even knows they changed the name of that chapter.
Exactly.
I'm
But
so proud of you.
board certification helps you with that, because you stay on top of these rule changes, which, again, I think is something that has helped me become a better lawyer, and studying for and taking this board certification exam, is I'm more, focused on rule changes and new and recent case law, making sure that I'm actually reading and seeing everything that comes through, so I can be a better attorney, for my clients, and actually know what I'm doing. I mean, because like you said, there's some attorneys that, they don't know that there's been rule changes. I still have attorneys that, are going by the old 12.285 mandatory disclosure rules, which, were modified well over a year ago. So, it's good just knowing that information, and looking and making sure you're staying on top of the law. But, for instance, yesterday, Supreme Court released a new amendment going into effect July 1st, to the notice of production from non-party subpoenas, and they finally, I don't know why this wasn't done previously, but they finally changed it where if it's served by email, the objection deadline is not 15 days anymore. It's now 10 days. So again, that's something that a lot of attorneys don't stay on top of these things. I have it favorited and bookmarked where I periodically check in to see if there's rules updates, new family law cases, stuff like that. And I like to, actually look at them and read them. And so that was one that I saw come in yesterday. I mean, literally, it was dated June 16th and it goes into effect July 1st. So as of July 1st, for anyone out there, the new rule is that the objection deadline is 10 days if served by email, not 15 days. So, those are just things that help you become a better practitioner in family law, better serve your clients, and also, let's be honest, make you look good to the court at the end of the day. If you know what you're talking about, judges are going to respect you. And, all we have in this profession is our reputation, in my opinion. And so, if you know what you're doing, if, you are a professional, if you understand, the laws and the rules and the procedures, I think that goes a long way, to helping you and your career, moving forward.
Definitely agree with that. And even if you don't pass the test, I've never heard anyone say that, it didn't make them a better attorney, just going through the process. So
it certainly makes you a better attorney, and I don't think it should be anything that if someone takes the exam, they should be discouraged if they don't pass it. I'm not going to lie, I was bummed for a while, after I got those results the first time, but it also motivated me because I realized I wasn't ready for it. I didn't take it. I didn't spend enough time, studying. I didn't manage my time well during the exam. And on top of that, you have to also kind of take into consideration what's going on in your personal and your professional life during those months leading up to the exam, and really make a decision consciously whether or not you are going to be able to have enough time to devote to studying for the exam. The first time around, I didn't. Everything was crazy. Work was crazy. As much as COVID hurt a lot of businesses and people, as I told everyone, it has been very helpful for family law attorneys. And my practice, saw that, and saw that, increase in that time frame. And we were very, very busy. And that led to me not having as much time, probably because I was focusing on cases and my law firm and all of that. And the second time around, it was more planning better. And, thankfully we had a new associate attorney at that point that started, last year, who had helped with the firm. My wife, who is also my partner, and she is also one of the 275 board certified family law attorneys in the state of Florida. She was a great help as well. So she,
when did she pass?
She passed in 2019.
Cool. So that was the year before I started interviewing him. I'm gonna have to set up an interview with her.
Yeah. So she's been board certified for a few years now, and she was a great help. Obviously, helping with my cases and kind of jumping in as needed on the emergency situations that came up, and trying to deal with things so I didn't have to stress out and worry about it, and I could focus on studying.
Well, Andrew, any other tips you can think of that might benefit our listeners who are thinking of or planning to take this test?
Like I said, definitely study. I mean, don't discount the fact that this is not a lot of information. If you wait until it's too late, you're not going to be ready. It is a lot of information to understand, and so you've got to make sure that you're looking at all your sources, but also know yourself. Everyone is different in how they study. What I tell someone and how I study may not work for the next person. What you may tell someone may not work. There might be someone out there that only studied 50 hours and then they passed the exam. That may have worked for them, because everyone is different. One person may study, using flashcards. That may work for them. That's not the way I study. I didn't use flashcards. I didn't do outlines. I literally just read. I read and I read and I read. I read the books, I read the outlines, I read the cases, I read the statutes, I read the rules. I made my own notes and everything, just as little quick reminders on things that popped out or seemed important, but I largely just read. and so it's just a lot of personal, ways of doing things, that everyone, kind of does for themselves. I tend to learn things and memorize things by just kind of go over it and over and over in it and remembering it. And then time management. I mean, I keep going back to that because it is not enough time. honest about that. And it was both years. I mean, even this year as well, it wasn't enough time, but I already knew that going into it. So that helped me plan a little bit better so I can formulate better responses on the essays, because multiple choice, it is what it is. Those, you go through, you get them, you're either you're right or you're wrong, but you go through and you get them done. The short, answer, I will say on those, don't spend too much time. That was another thing that I did incorrectly the first year, is I went down the rabbit hole of
Yeah, they're just
answering.
they're looking for 1 point on those short
Exactly.
answers.
And I mistakenly made that problem an issue. The first time I took it, is that I would answer, because they require you
Like
to
an
say,
essay.
yes or no, and then give your brief, answer to that question. Well, on a couple of them, I don't know if maybe I just felt like, because I knew the answer, I realized I typed way too much. I'm like, I spent way too much time on that one question, which took away from being able to answer an essay question, later on. And so focus on limiting the amount of time that you spend on those short answer, questions. They're not looking for a long response. It's just make sure that you understand like why the answer is what it is. And then using as much of that time on the essays as possible so you can formulate your thoughts and try to make it, organized enough that it makes sense and you're actually applying the different laws to the facts and the issues, and showing them that you actually know what you're talking about. Because I think the more information you can get and the more analysis that you can put on there to show them that you understand what the laws and the rules are and how they apply, goes a long way, not just regurgitating, statutes or rules or, anything like that. So time management is crucial, and just stay focused and try not to let all the outside stressors come in. I know that's very difficult, especially nowadays, but having work support, having family support, friend support, that's a game changer, I think, for a lot of people as well, because I wouldn't have been able to do it if I didn't have the support of my family and my colleagues at the office as well, because life is busy and stressful, and if you've got kids and you've got your own practice, or even if you're just an associate, if you got billable requirements, whatever it may be, I mean, it's a lot to take on to be able to set aside the amount of time that you need to focus and study for this exam. And it is a hard exam. It's a fair exam. I think that is why there are, only, I think it's 275 attorneys now in the entire state of Florida that are board certified in marital and family law.
Two are in your house.
Yeah, and yeah, two of them right here. But yeah, I think that's part of the reason why it is such an achievement for family law attorneys. And if you are serious about it, take the opportunity, go ahead and do it, because if anything, it is going to make you a better attorney and a better practitioner.
Agreed. Andrew, thank you so much for your time. The reason we interview so far, we've interviewed everybody in the past 2 years the Florida Bar has said has passed, and hearing the different approaches, I think is really helpful. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Good luck and congratulations on this epic achievement.
Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate it very much.